Welcome to Behind the Story, where we discover the story behind your favourite stories. My name's Lisa Renee from the Collab Press, and I'm also a rom-com writer.
And I'm Naomi Craig. I write historical fiction set in Bible times, or biblical novels, or biblical fiction, or there's a lot of names for it. So we welcome back today Mesu Andrews, who's a fantastic biblical novelist, and to talk about her latest in Feast or Famine. But before we do that, what are you working on?
What am I working on? Well, I am endeavouring to do a Kickstarter. So it's a little bit like instead of a GoFundMe, it's like for creatives. So usually it's, there's all sorts of things on Kickstarters, like projects and things like that, but fiction authors are getting on there. There aren't a lot of my genre on there, so it's going to be a bit more of a challenge because it's usually the genres that really like, the fancy hardback covers and special editions and all that kind of stuff. But I'm going for a new, my edge to mine is that people, obviously they get an advance copy like months before they can get it on Amazon. But I'm also doing an edition where people can have their name as the main character. So I'll do a special edition for certain backers that are supporting the project. They can have their name as the main character throughout the whole book. If they have their partner or husband, spouse, they want to put in, he can be the main character, the guide's point of view. And for us, an exclusive backer, there is an opportunity to have your illustration on the cover as well, your cartoon, your characters, because my illustrator, you give her the photos and she does the cartoons. So so that's going to be a lot of fun, and it takes a bit of work learning a new platform and uploading everything and working it all out. And then once it's done, the fulfillment of that. But it's just an opportunity to work direct with the people that are following me, my subscribers, but also you do get a lot of new people from Kickstarter that love backing creative projects and seeing them come to life, and they get their name mentioned in the acknowledgements and some cool things like that.
Yeah, that's pretty fun. So do you, I know your brain is always thinking of the next thing, but is this something you're just doing for the fun of it, or are you I don't even know what question to ask.
Yeah, well, some people do some regular ones, but Kickstarters are more of a bigger project. Like, for example, if you were launching a series on Amazon or whatever, you might make your big launch the first book, or you might make it the last in the series, but the other ones aren't as a bigger launch. Well, Kickstarter is like a big deal and a big thing, and so it takes a bit more time, and it is like a traditional publisher, that effort that you put in, bringing in, doing podcasts and things like that, blog posts, everything, all sorts of things to get people to know about it and interested in it. So yeah, it's a bit of a big effort. So yeah, you wouldn't want to do it too many times. Maybe it's a once a year thing or twice a year.
Gotcha.
And then probably I'll end up like helping other authors do Kickstarters or something.
I'm sure you will. The latest thing, see, this is the benefit for everyone. If you go with the Collab Press, you get all of Lisa's knowledge, you get all of her expertise with all of her different trials and errors. She does the hard work, figures it out. So now you've got a perfected thing. So
yeah,
go with the Collab Press.
Yeah, that's right. So the Collab Press, we are doing helping people, build their subscribers, get a bit of a base, bit of a platform to launch from. That's one big thing. But we do things like some editing. We have some editors. Tabitha and Carrie are actually my main editors at the moment. I do some if they're too busy, or we have a new author that has very interesting work to start with. They need a bit of coaching. So yeah, that's all something that we do as well.
Yeah, so you can custom make the package, like as much help as you need or as little help, you can find it at the Collab Press. So
yeah. And what about you, Naomi? What are you working on?
Yeah, actually, Mesu and I are both participating in Biblical Fiction Aficionados mega giveaway, where there's 18 authors who have collaborated with us. Ladies like Sandy Rebert, who we just talked to last, and Jill Eileen Smith, Connie Lynn Cozette. There's a whole bunch. There's 18 different authors participating and giving a book of their choice. It's open internationally. There will be 2 winners. The grand prize will, based on region, We'll also get the chosen TV show of your season of choice, 1, 2, or 3 on Blu-ray. And then the first winner gets 9 book selections they get to choose based on their region. And then the second winner will get the remaining 9 books. If it is in a region that is that doesn't have access to all of them, like there's several paperbacks or whatever, then we'll pick a third winner. So it's an exclusive biblical fiction and early church era bundle. Really fabulous. I'm really, really excited about doing that. Because usually if you do like one of those newsletter sweeps, you have historical. So you'll have a lot of the different history time periods, but for this one to be exclusively biblical fiction is pretty cool. So we can definitely have, it's pretty fun.
Yeah.
So,
okay. Well, we'll definitely put that link in the show notes. Make sure you email me that and I'll put it in the show notes.
it runs through June 7th. So we've got some time left on that. And like I said, you'll get a chance to win In Feast or Famine, which is our guests. Ezekiel's song is in there. And we've got a lot of other fantastic books.
And I'll mention there, these kind of giveaways that authors run and with groups, you have a higher chance of winning. So it's definitely worth making effort to try and enter. And you could be surprised. You might actually win. And we always have giveaways as well. So make sure you subscribe to our channel.
Yeah, we always do. Mesu's got In Feast or Famine offering a paperback for the US. For this recording, we always have great giveaways. And you never know, if you haven't heard of this author, maybe this will be your favorite author, but if it's free, it's a good time to try it out. So be sure that you are liking and subscribing Behind the Story so you get notified of all our great authors and the books that they're talking about. So getting right into that, our guest today is biblical novelist Mesu Andrews. If you follow Mesu on social media, you'll find humor, book talk, and deep scriptures. Since we last had her on, Mesu has also started publishing devotionals, devotions with depth, as well as, of course, her study fare of biblical novels. Mesu, welcome back to Behind the Story.
Thanks for having me, guys.
We are so glad to have you back. But for those, if there is any, who aren't familiar with you, tell us a little bit about you and what you write.
Well, I write biblical fiction. I used to be able to say that was all I wrote. My husband and I recently published a devotional series on Genesis. So I have to add that in now. But my main projects, those are biblical novels. I like to call them biblical novels instead of biblical fiction, because biblical fiction just sounds kind of like an oxymoron to me. The Bible is truth, not fiction. So anyway, that's what I write. That's what I enjoy.
Well, excellent. I'm so glad to connect with you outside of our little box here too, through our biblical world. And your latest release, In Feast or Famine, is book 2 in the Egyptian Chronicles. For 15 years, Asenath is sequestered in the upper levels of Ra's temple, convinced it is her destiny to heal the land by becoming queen to the next Egyptian pharaoh. But when Egypt's foreign king instead gives her as a bride to the newly appointed vizier, a Hebrew named Joseph, her entire world is shaken. So what is the story behind In Feast or Famine?
Well, we know, many of us know the story about Joseph from Sunday school or, Bible studies or whatever. And we read right over that little fact that Joseph, faithful Joseph, is given as a bride, the daughter of the high priest of On. That's the high priest of Ra, who is the sun god, who is like, Pharaoh is considered to be the son, the living son of Ra on the throne. And so this woman that Joseph gets as a bride, she's a big deal. And she is the daughter of this pagan priest. So Now, when we left Joseph in Potiphar's wife, this is a little bit of a spoiler, but not too much, because you find this out in the very prologue of In Feast or Famine. Joseph is in love with a Hebrew slave that he met Potiphar's wife. And they're planning to get married because they're just sure God is going to release him from prison. And they're like really solid in love. And my readers love this Hebrew slave. Her name is Ahira. My editor loved this Hebrew slave. My editor said, I'm not going to edit your book In Feast or Famine because I don't want Joseph to marry Asenath. The Bible says he has to, but I don't want him to, and I like Ahira, so forget it. So I had to really, really work to get even my editor to be on board with this whole marriage thing with Asenath, because I even loved Ahira, this fictional woman that Joseph fell in love with. So how did I get him out of love with Ahira and in love with Asenath? That was actually a really big problem.
Yeah.
And so Joseph, faithful, Yahweh loving Joseph, has trouble loving Asenath. Well, Asenath, she's going to have some trouble loving a Hebrew, right? Because we find out from scripture later that even when Joseph has successfully maneuvered the feast, the 7 years of flooding, because remember, in the feasting time, there's going to be more water than normal. So it's going to be flooding. So he's going to have to see them through some of that disaster time, as well as the abundant grain production. So there's some things he's going to have to work through even in the feasting. And so he's working through that. But in the Bible, it even tells us that even though he's a successful vizier, he served separately from the Egyptians because Hebrews are despised by Egyptians. So how is she going to fall in love with him too? So those were some of the really kind of wonky things that were already two strikes against me. I did find a historical document that was written somewhere between 200 BC and 200 AD. It was just called Joseph and Asenath. I found it on a very reliable source, Google. Yep. Yeah, I know. But it was written originally by Jewish sources. It was updated later on, and some Christian symbolism was added to it. But this fiction document told the story of Joseph and Asenath's courtship, their marriage. It told the fictional story of how Joseph's brothers came back into his life and how they were reunited. So I have this ancient fiction, and part of it was Potiphar kept his daughter Asenath in a tower.
Wow.
Time she was a little girl, until she looked out her window and saw that hot young thing, Joseph. Yep, it was in there. It was in there. The Hebrew Rapunzel right there in ancient fiction. So I did borrow that for my book. I did. I totally borrowed that for my book.
I love it. So not only do we write biblical novels, but one of the first novels was actually biblical.
Yes. Isn't that awesome? I loved it. So she's very quirky. She was raised in this tower with two other girls who were born on the exact same night as her. And so they were raised as her handmaids, but more like sisters of the heart. And so these three girls grew up together. They were prepared to be priestesses, chantresses, actually. So they sang chants at certain times of the day. They had witnessed as 4-year-old children the murder of Asenath's mother. And her dying wish was that Asenath would heal Egypt. And the way Potiphar told his daughter she was supposed to heal Egypt was She was to marry an Egyptian pharaoh and join Upper and Lower Egypt as one nation again.
Wow.
So that's kind of where we start with then the political intrigue, and that's where we go.
Wow, that sounds like an excellent backstory. Very interesting.
Right.
So with the first book, you had some different points of view, and you put the main character, Potiphar's wife, in first person. And you had some other characters. What have you done with this book?
This book is done very much the same way. Asenath is in first person, so you get that intimate feeling with her. You feel everything she feels. You're in it with her. It's a little easier with this heroine because in Potiphar's wife, being in first person with Potiphar's wife was a little hard because she was not a very nice person. Asenath, she's a good one. This was much easier to write, much more fun to write. We got a little romance in here. We get to go on that journey with her and Joseph as they are just beginning to like each other, and then beginning to love each other. So that is a sweet, sweet journey because, and then we also get to go on her faith journey. We get to see that kernel of faith begin to open up, and just those first little steps of who is this God? Can I trust him? Oh man, he really is real. That first realization that maybe the gods that I've learned about my whole life are a lie. And what does that look like? How does that feel? And then Joseph is in third person, which is very similar, but I know a lot of people were surprised in Potiphar's wife, the big betrayal that we know of in scripture where she, takes his whatever.
Clothes off. Yeah.
Yeah, basically his clothes off.
Keep it PG here.
Yeah, PG, hello. A loincloth or whatever. That doesn't happen in Potiphar's wife until very late in the story. And so a lot of people were surprised by that. And I really don't go into what most people know about Joseph's story, where his brothers betray him, they sell him to the Midianites and all of that. But you know what? That's my brand. I don't tell you what you see in scripture.
Yeah.
Read scripture. You can read that by yourself. I love to go and find the details of a history, and then I'm going to fill in those historical details, and then I'm going to take one line out of scripture that maybe you've never noticed before.
Right.
I'm going to tell you what scripture or what historical underpinnings there are to support that line of scripture, and why that line of scripture opens up a whole new meaning for some of the things that you may have taken for granted your whole life when you read that story.
Wow.
That's what I love to do with my stories, because those women that I get to write about, okay, so Isaiah's daughter, Hephzibah, who knew about Hephzibah, right? And whoever cared about Asenath or Potiphar's wife, for that matter.
Right.
I love those women, and whoever knew that Pharaoh's daughter that pulled Joseph out of the Nile, whoever knew that she was named in First Chronicles.
Yeah, I love that part. That was cool.
No, so there's so many fun things that come out of that history that we just don't know if all we do is just read the Bible in order.
So you kind of mentioned it, that Joseph is kind of almost in Potiphar's wife. He's almost like a side character. He's not even really primary, I guess. Does he have more of a spotlight this time around?
Yeah. This book is all Joseph, all Asenath, and a little bit of Potiphera. We get, so in the Audible format of this book, they actually gave me four actors.
Oh, wow.
4 voice actors for this, because they felt like it was really important to give Ahira, this Hebrew slave that she and Joseph are together at the beginning, she has her very own voice actor in the
Wow.
program, because she is such an important part of that foundation of who Joseph has become. And she's really the one that supported him while he was in prison and kept him faithful and going and hopeful, you know?
Yeah.
And so she has her own actress in the audiobook. And then we have Asenath, we have Joseph, and it goes back and forth between their POVs in this book. And Joseph is very, very much, front and center in here. But Potiphera too has his very own voice actor. He's got a real gravelly voice. And the one that we chose for that, he's perfect for that part. And I think like all good villains, there's some redemptive things about Potiphera. He's not all bad. You really understand that he's a dad that loves his daughter very much, and he wants for her what they've prepared her for her whole life. He adored his wife that was murdered by this foreign army that came in and killed the Egyptian kings. He wants his nation to be restored, and he's willing to fight for that.
Sure.
So
I love that.
And I think Joseph, I put more struggle in this book with Joseph, because I felt like so often we look at the story of Joseph in scripture, and we just, we put him up here on this pedestal, and he's such a perfect guy, and he is a Christ figure. He is a Christ figure in the Old Testament. He's a foreshadowing of who Christ is going to be when he comes in human form. So I had to be really kind of careful and walk that tightrope and not let him fall too far from.
Right. But he can't be too much of a saint either.
Exactly. He has to have some faults. And honestly, what was up with that whole thing when he hid his cup in the brothers?
Right.
I mean, what was up with that? What are you doing, man? Was that just meanness, or was that, did you have a plan there, or would you just be an ornery, or what was up with that? And so I really struggled with that. And was when the brothers first came, what was that reaction that he had? I mean, we see the words in scripture, but we don't know the tone. We don't know the inflection. We don't know the emotion behind it. And so that's fiction. That's fiction. Whether your pastor is preaching on it from the pulpit or whether you're reading it in a novel, how we interpret Joseph's emotion there, that's fiction.
Right.
So I interpreted it in a way that Hammy from the first book, from Potiphar's wife, he's our wonderful Medjay. My editor also said he had to come back or she wasn't doing the book. She got pretty particular about some of these.
Who's writing this book? You or me?
Well, yeah, we did this one together because she really got invested in those characters, and I was really glad, because it was a joy. This book was so much fun to write. It really was. Joseph is one of my very favorite characters, and I really did feel like in Potiphar's wife, I had to pull back on Joseph because I had to work so hard to keep Potiphar's wife relatable.
Right.
And I felt like I was working so hard to keep afloat on that story that it just was, it was churning. It was treading water to keep that story going and to keep all of those characters moving in sync with the flow on that story. this book, it just flowed, and it was such a joy, because even though there are hard things that happen, of course there has to be for the characters to grow, but it was moving toward the redemption in a way that you just felt the energy. You felt it coming. Even in the hard things, you felt like this is coming. It's gonna happen. So it was fun.
I think as an author also, with the second book, you've got these characters developed, you know your characters really well. It's easy. You want them back. You love those characters.
Yes.
And the readers also like to see them back. So it flows much better. Yeah.
It is. It's very fun.
So do you cover beyond those 14 years of feast and famine? Like, do you go, no, it stops.
Yeah. It actually stopped. So the brothers came in the second year of the famine. And so then they come back, they bring Jacob back, and the story itself then stops when Jacob blesses Pharaoh.
Very cool.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of a full circle, and yeah, it's a good thing. It felt like a kind of one of those sighs when you just
everything's full circle.
Yeah.
If you're watching, comment below, let us know. Joseph is really hot right now in biblical novels, so comment below, let us know which Joseph books you have read, and if you haven't read any Joseph books, what if you have skimmed over Asenath, or if you were aware of her name even. Comment below, let us know. You're getting some fantastic reviews already coming in on Amazon. Ms. Carey says, I'm so thankful for authors like Mesu Andrews who zero in on names and events in scripture that typically don't get much attention, cultivate that little stirring of imagination that must spring to life inside them, and are then able to build a plausible and meaningful narrative that stays true to both history and God's word. In fact, biblical fiction that is written within those guardrails makes me fall in love with the Bible and God's intentional plan to rescue and redeem all over again. Andrew's newest novel is a prime example. Congratulations, you've done it again. You have sent them back to the Bible to double check. I love it. I love it.
That is the best compliment I ever get, is when someone tells me that, oh, your book sent me back to the Bible to see if what you had written was in there.
Lines up. Yeah.
Yes.
I did not know that was a real thing. Yeah. I love it.
Yes. That is the best thing I ever hear, because that's why I write. I write fiction to send people to the truth.
In your intro, you mentioned you've got a new venture with your husband. You're doing some devotionals. Is that called Devotionals?
Devotionals, yes, that fun. Devotionals, devotions with depth. And these are things that I wrote 20 years ago. And I first tried to get published writing devotions and Bible studies because I love the word. And I've always researched, and that was my first love. And nobody would publish a little pastor's wife from Indiana. And so one of my best friends said, you need to write biblical novels, write fiction, and teach like Jesus did through parables. And so that's what I do. I write edutainment. That's why I write fiction, is to send people to scripture. But my husband, because he has a PhD in education, he found some of those devotionals, and he said, I think I can arrange these and put some questions here and put this here and arrange it. And so he edited it, and we did the full book of Genesis. So it starts out with a little story. So that's all mine. Then we put a little scripture, and then I share what the Lord told me about that scripture. And then the third part of it is just a little jumping off prayer that I wrote. And then there is a fourth part if somebody wants to do it. It's called Sheep Going Deep, and it's all done in about 15 minutes. So it's short, like a devotional, but deep like a study. So devotionals.
Wow. So did you
Will you be-
self-publish that?
We did.
Yeah,
Yes.
excellent.
Yeah, it's available on Amazon in ebook or paperback. And
Right.
actually a publisher is looking at it now though. So we'll see.
Yeah.
So
Excellent.
will you be going through the whole Bible with that?
You know, people have asked me that. I don't know yet. We've got about 7 books of the Bible finished.
Wow.
So, but they're all over the place. I mean, it's Acts and John and Job and, you know, so yeah, there's no rhyme or reason to them right now. It was just ones that I felt, you know, and they took me forever to do because I do like 5 verses at a time. I do a very short amount of scripture every morning. I wake up and just do very few verses and talk to the Lord about just those few and say,
I
okay,
love it.
what are you going to talk to me about today?
Wonderful. So what's coming up next? What can we expect from you?
Ooh, I am into David and his wives. It is so much fun. I am I'm researching the 6 wives mentioned in 2 Samuel 3. So Ahinoam, Abigail, Maacah, Haggith, Abital, and Eglah, and their early days with David. So they're the 6 wives that were with him during his wilderness wandering and in Hebron before he goes to Jerusalem. So,
Wow. That sounds excellent. We definitely need to follow you for that. So where's the best way to keep in contact with you, with what's happening next and when things are coming out?
my website is a great place to go, mesuandrews.com. And I keep in regular contact with my newsletter folks, and there's a sign up there on the website. You can get a hold of me there. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and all those things.
Yep, excellent. And the newsletters are always worth opening and reading. So be sure to sign up for that. Thank you so much, Mesu, for joining us back again here.
Thank you guys, and blessings on your writing.
Mesu, we will have those links in the show notes and the Facebook group. Don't forget to get her free book from her website as well. And subscribe to our channel because we always have giveaways.
As always, we do have freebies linked with the show. If you're here for the biblical fiction crowd, I have a biblical novella about Balaam and his talking donkey. It's called On Desolate Heights. That's free to download at naomicraig.com.
And I have a free audiobook or ebook in the first of my series, Fake Engagement Mistake. That's on my website. I also have a giveaway, which I'll be putting the show notes for all of my audiobooks in that series.
There's also the Biblical Fiction Aficionados multi-author giveaway. That's in the show notes as well. Be sure to enter as many times or as few as you want. You can get, by following the author's newsletter, you get more points and all that. So as many and as few as you like.
And next episode, we have another author back from the Trinity Lakes romance series. It's a debut author, Yola Goulton. And it's spelled Iola, but it's Yola. I was calling her Iola for a long time. It's Yola.
It's funny too, because if you look at it, and some fonts will make your capital I look like an L without the crossbar. So sometimes it looks like Lola.
Yes. So we'll make sure we get it right by the show. She's from New Zealand, so I'll probably be meeting her up by myself. But Naomi will go back to do the intro.
Yeah. So thank you for joining us on this edition of Behind the Story. We hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe and follow for more tidbits and news about your favorite authors. Until next time, let us run with endurance the race set before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. See you next time.